Stop for a moment and ask yourself this. How much of your energy today was spent fighting what already is? Fighting the pace of life, fighting people, fighting yourself. Imagine standing in a river, angry that the water is moving, exhausted because you're trying to push it backward. The river doesn't care. It keeps flowing. And the truth is, life works the same way. The moment you stop fighting the current, you don't become weak. You become intelligent. You begin to move with purpose instead of resistance. Today is not about giving up control, it's about understanding where your effort actually belongs, so you can finally experience what it feels like to move forward without force. When you feel like life is constantly pushing against you, it's easy to believe that the answer is to push back harder. We're taught that resistance equals strength, that control equals success. But look closely at nature and you'll see a very different lesson. A river does not fight the rocks in its path. It doesn't argue with the turns it must take. It doesn't waste energy wishing the landscape were different. It simply moves, adjusts, and continues forward. This is where real flow begins, not in force, but in alignment. Most of our exhaustion comes from fighting what already is. We resist the phase we're in, the limitations we have, the lessons we don't yet understand. We tell ourselves, this shouldn't be happening, or I should be further ahead by now. That inner conflict drains more energy than the situation itself. Flow is not about giving up or becoming PAs. It's about recognizing where you are, fully, honestly, without judgment. The moment you stop arguing with reality, your mind becomes clearer and your energy returns. Think about how often you tense up when things don't go according to plan. Your breath shortens, your body tightens, your thoughts race. This is the physical cost of resistance. Now imagine doing the opposite. You pause, you breathe, you observe. You ask, what is this moment asking of me? Instead of forcing your way through, you learn to move with awareness. This is not weakness, this is intelligence. Education begins when you stop reacting and start understanding. Flow requires humility, the humility to accept that you cannot control everything, but you can always control your response. When you accept the current instead of fighting it, you free up mental space to learn. You begin to notice patterns. You see how challenges are shaping you, training you, preparing you. What once felt like an obstacle becomes a guide. The river teaches the mountain through patience, not pressure. Many people confuse flow with comfort. They think flowing means life becomes easy. That is not true. A river still passes through storms, narrow passages, and steep drops. Flow does not remove difficulty. It removes unnecessary struggle. There is a big difference. Struggle is what happens when your mind says no to what your life is saying yes to. Flow is when your actions align with the reality in front of you. To cultivate flow, you must first develop awareness. Notice where you are resisting. Is it a responsibility you do and want? A truth you're avoiding? A discipline you keep postponing? Resistance is often a sign that there is something important to learn. When you stop fighting it, the lesson reveals itself. This is how growth becomes natural, instead of forced. Education is not only found in books or classrooms, it is embedded in every experience. When you allow yourself to move with life, you become a student of each moment. You learn timing, you learn patience, you learn when to act and when to wait. Just as a river knows when to slow down and when to surge forward, you begin to sense the rhythm of your own life. The secret to finding your flow is not doing more, but aligning better. Stop asking how to control the river and start asking how to navigate it wisely. When you do this, you don't just move forward. You move forward with clarity, purpose, and calm. And when you stop fighting the river, you finally discover how powerful it is to let yourself flow. You are taught from a young age to push, to force, to fight your way forward. If something resists you, you are told to apply more effort, more pressure, more will. But nature does not work this way. A river does not argue with the rocks in its path. It does not stop and complain. It does not become angry because the path is not straight. It observes, it adjusts, and it continues to move. This is the lesson most people miss. They believe struggle is proof of progress, when in reality, constant struggle is often proof of misalignment. When you fight life, you burn energy without moving forward. You exhaust your mind trying to control outcomes that are not meant to be controlled. You cling to plans that no longer fit, identities that no longer serve you, and expectations that were never yours to begin with. This creates inner tension, and that tension disconnects you from flow. Flow is not laziness, it is not giving up. Flow is intelligent movement. It is knowing when to push and when to yield, when to act and when to wait. Ink of your own life. How often have you forced something simply because you decided it should work? A relationship, a career path, a version of success. You ignored the signals, the constant resistance, the anxiety, the quiet feeling that something was off. Instead of listening, you pushed harder. This is like trying to swim upstream while the current grows stronger. You may move for a while, eventually you will be exhausted. And exhaustion makes people bitter, confused, and lost. Flow begins with awareness. You must first see where you are fighting unnecessarily. Where are you spending energy proving something, controlling something, or chasing something that drains you? When you see this clearly without judgment, you create space. In that space, wisdom appears. You begin to notice. See that not every obstacle is meant to be smashed through. Some are meant to redirect you. Some are meant to slow you down so you can learn. Some are meant to teach patience. This does not mean you become passive. The river still moves forward, but it moves according to the terrain, not against it. When you act from flow, your actions become precise. You stop reacting emotionally to every challenge. You stop taking resistance personally. You respond instead of react. And this response is grounded, calm, and effective. Many people fear flow because they think letting go means losing control. But the truth is, control is an illusion that creates suffering. When you loosen your grip, you gain clarity. You start to see opportunities you were too tense to notice before. You meet the right PO. Because you are not forcing connections. You make better decisions because your mind is not clouded by fear and urgency. Flow requires trust, not blind hope, but trust built on self-discipline, self-awareness, and inner stability. When you train your body and mind, when you learn to sit with discomfort without panicking, you develop this trust naturally. You know you can adapt. You know you see and endure. So you no longer rush. You no longer cling. You move when it is time to move. Life is not asking you to fight it. It is asking you to listen, to align, and to move with intention. When you stop fighting the river, you discover that it was always carrying you forward. When you stop fighting the river, the first thing you begin to notice is how much energy you are wasting without realizing. Most people believe strength is about pushing harder, forcing outcomes, and proving endurance through struggle. But real strength is not loud. It is quiet, efficient, and deeply aware. It understands when to move and when to wait. Think about how water shapes stone. It does not attack the rock with anger. It does not rush. It simply stays present, consistent, and responsive. Over time, what once seemed immovable begins to change. This is the kind of power you access when you stop resisting what is and start working with it. Many of your frustrations come not from your circumstances, but from your refusal to accept where you are right now. You tell yourself, I shouldn't be here. I should be further ahead. Life should be easier by now. And in that inner argument, you tighten your BO. Die, your breath becomes shallow, and your mind turns restless. Flow disappears the moment you argue with reality. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means seeing clearly. Only when you see clearly can you move wisely. If you are standing in the middle of a fast river and you fight the current, you will exhaust yourself quickly. But if you align your body with the flow, you can move across with far less effort. Flow begins with awareness of your internal state. Notice how often you tense your shoulders, clench your jaw, or rush your breath. These are signs of resistance. The body always reveals the truth before the mind admits it. When you soften your body, you soften your thinking. When you slow your breath, your decisions become cleaner. This is not philosophy. This is practice. Every moment you relax unnecessary tension, you reclaim energy that can be used for purposeful action. There is also a deeper lesson here about control. Many people try to control life because they are afraid of uncertainty. But control is an illusion. You can guide your actions, your discipline, your effort, but you cannot command outcomes. Flow happens when you focus fully on what is within your reach and release attachment to what is not. A musician in flow does not think about applause. A martial artist in flow does not think about victory. They are fully absorbed in the movement itself. That presence sharpens skill and reveals timing. Life works the same way. When you stop fighting, you start listening. You notice patterns. You sense when to advance and when to retreat. Opportunities appear, not because you forced them, but because you were ready to recognize them. Flow is not passive. It is highly responsive. Like water, it adapts instantly to what is placed in its path. If there is an opening, it moves through. If there is an obstacle, it goes around or waits until the pressure changes. This patience is not weakness. It is intelligence. You must also understand that resistance often comes from ego, the part of you that wants life to match your expectations. Flow asks you to let go of rigid identity. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your timeline. You are not behind. You are here, and from here there is always a next step. When you accept the present moment fully, action becomes effortless, because you are no longer dragging yesterday's disappointment or tomorrow fear into it. The moment you stop fighting the river, you realize it was never against you. It was trying to carry you forward all along. When people hear the word stop fighting, they often misunderstand them. They think it means giving up, becoming weak, or letting life walk over you. But that is not what this teaching is about at all. It is about recognizing the difference between effort and resistance. Effort is clean. Resistance is heavy. Effort moves with life. Resistance moves against it. Most people are exhausted, not because life is too hard, but because they are constantly pushing against what already is. Think of a river. The river flows according to gravity, terrain, and time. It does not argue with the rocks in its path. It does not complain when the path becomes narrow. It does not panic when the current speeds up. It simply adjusts. When you fight the river, you waste energy trying to control what cannot be controlled. When you learn to read the river, you use its power to move forward. In life, resistance shows up when reality does not match your expectations. You say, this should not be happening, I should be further ahead. People should treat me different. Lie. Every time you say should, you are tightening your body and mind against the present moment. That tension blocks clarity. And without clarity, even your hard work becomes blind. Flow begins with acceptance, not as a passive act, but as a precise awareness of what is actually happening right now. Acceptance does not mean you like the situation. It means you see it clearly without distortio. When you stop arguing with reality, your mind becomes quiet enough to respond intelligently. Only then can you act effectively. Many people confuse flow with comfort. They think flow means everything feels easy all the time. That is not true. Flow often includes discomfort, discipline, and challenge. The difference is that the struggle is no longer internal. Your energy goes into action, not I. NTO, mental resistance. You train your body even when it is tired. You study even when it is difficult. You face fear without feeding it with unnecessary stories. When you are in flow, your actions are aligned with timing. You push when it is time to push. You wait when it is time to wait. Most mistakes in life come from wrong timing, not lack of effort. Forcing growth before the foundation is DY leads to collapse. Avoiding action when the moment calls for courage leads to regret. Flow teaches you to listen before you move. This listening is not mystical, it is practical. It means paying attention to your energy, your environment, and the consequences of your actions. When something consistently drains you without building strength or wisdom, it is a sign you are pushing against the CU. Rent. When something challenges you but also sharpens you, it is often where the current wants you to go. Control is another illusion that keeps people stuck. You cannot control outcomes, other people, or the future. What you can control is your posture toward life. You can choose discipline over chaos. You can choose responsibility over blame. You can choose patience over panic. These choices, place you in harmony with the flow instead of in constant battle with it. Letting go of resistance also requires humility. The ego wants to be right, to win, to prove something. Flow does not care about your ego. It cares about movement, balance, and direction. Sometimes the strongest move is to step back. Sometimes the bravest move is to stay silent. Sometimes the wisest move is to start again from zero. When you stop fighting the river, you do not become weaker. You become more precise. Your energy stops leaking into frustration and starts concentrating into skill. Your mind becomes calm, not lazy. Your actions become simple, not careless. This is where progress becomes sustainable. So stop wrestling with what you cannot change and start mastering how you respond, because the moment you move with life, instead of against it, life begins to move with you. When you truly stop fighting the river, you begin to understand something very important. Flow is not passive. Many people misunderstand this. They think going with the flow means doing nothing, accepting everything, becoming weak or lazy. That is not flow. Flow is alignment. It is when your effort moves in the same direction as life, not against it. A river still moves with strength, with speed, with power. But it does not argue with the mountain. It finds a way around it. And this is where most people exhaust themselves. They push directly against what is, instead of adjusting how they move through it. Look closely at your own life. How much energy do you waste resisting reality? You argue with the past, you resent the present, you fear the future, and all of that resistance creates friction inside you. Friction creates fatigue. Fatigue clouds judgment, and when your judgment is clouded, even simple decisions feel heavy. Flow begins the moment you say, "This is where I am." Without bitterness, without self-pity, without drama. Acceptance is not surrender, it is clarity. And clarity is the doorway to intelligent action. When you act from resistance, every step feels forced. When you act from flow, effort becomes precise. You no longer scatter your energy. You place it. You move when it is time to move, and you pause when it is time to pause. The river does not rush, in drought, and it does not hesitate in rain. It responds. Flow is responsiveness. It requires awareness, not aggression. And awareness is a discipline. It means paying attention to your body, your breath, your thoughts, and the signals life gives you, without immediately reacting. Most people want control because they do not trust themselves. They grip tightly because they are afraid that if they loosen their hold, everything will fall apart. But control is often a cover for fear. Flow, on the other hand, is built on trust. Trust in preparation, trust in principles, trust in your ability to adapt. When you train your mind and body daily, you do not need to panic when conditions change. You adjust naturally. This is why discipline creates freedom. Without discipline, flow is impossible. With discipline, flow becomes inevitable. You must also understand that flow does not remove obstacles. It teaches you how to meet them. Rocks will still be there. Currents will still shift. But instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "How do I move with this?" That single question changes everything. It turns frustration into curiosity. It turns struggle into learning. And learning keeps you moving forward without burning yourself out. In flow, ego becomes quieter. You stop trying to prove something. You stop competing with imaginary enemies. You focus on what is directly in front of you. One breath, one step, one decision. This simplicity is powerful. Complexity drains the mind. Simplicity sharpens it. When your mind is sharp, life feels lighter. Not because it is easy, but because you are no longer fighting shadows. And here is the deeper truth. When you stop fighting the river, you realize you were never separate from it. Life is not something happening to you, it is something moving through you. When your actions align with your values, your timing aligns with reality, and your effort aligns with purpose, you enter flow naturally. There is no force, there is no rush, there is only movement. So stop exhausting yourself trying to control every turn. Learn the direction of the current, strengthen yourself, stay awake, and then move, not against life, but with it. There is one final truth that brings everything together, and it is this: flow is not something you find outside of yourself. It is something you allow by the way you live each moment. Many people believe that once life becomes easier, once problems disappear, once they feel confident or successful, then flow will arrive. But that belief itself is what keeps them stuck. Flow does not come after the struggle ends. Flow appears the moment you stop demanding that life be different from what it is right now. Think of the river again. The river does not wait for perfect weather to move. It does not stop flowing because there are rocks, curves, or narrow passages. It flows because flowing is its nature. When you resist what is happening in your life, you are not stopping the river, you are exhausting yourself by swimming against it. When you accept where you are without giving up responsibility, you suddenly save energy, and that energy becomes clarity, focus, and strength. Acceptance is often misunderstood. People think it means weakness, passivity, or surrendering your dreams. That is not acceptance. True acceptance is seeing reality clearly, without emotional distortion. It is saying, this is where I am right now. This is what I have. This is what I can work with. From that place, intelligent action becomes possible. Without acceptance, every action is driven by frustration, fear, or ego, and those forces always block flow. Flow appears when your actions match the moment, when you stop rushing ahead mentally and stop dragging the past behind you emotionally. Most suffering comes from being in the wrong time. The body is here, but the mind is 10 steps ahead. Or stuck 10 steps behind. When you bring the mind back into the body, back into the present task, life becomes simple again. Simple does not mean easy. Simple means clear. In daily life, this shows up in very practical ways. When you eat, just eat. When you train, just train. When you work, work fully. Half presence creates double resistance. Full presence removes friction. This is why people who live in flow seem calm, even under pressure. They are not wasting energy arguing with reality. All their energy goes into response, not resistance. Another key to staying in flow is understanding timing. The river teaches patience. There are moments to push forward and moments to wait. Forcing movement when the time is wrong creates burnout. Refusing to move when the time is right creates stagnation. Flow requires sensitivity. You develop this sensitivity by paying attention to your body, your breath, and your inner state. When tension rises, it is often a signal that you are forcing something. When clarity appears, it is often a signal that the path is open. Discipline plays a quiet but powerful role here. Many people think flow means everything feels effortless all the time. That is not true. Flow often requires disciplined preparation. The river flows smoothly because its path has been shaped over time. Your mind flows better when it is trained. Practices like stillness, controlled breathing, and consistent routines remove internal noise. Less noise means clearer direction. Most importantly, flow is sustained by humility. When you believe you must control everything, life will constantly humble you. When you accept that you are part of something larger, not separate from it, cooperation replaces control. You stop asking, how do I win against life, and start asking, how do I move with it? That single shift changes everything. When you stop fighting the river, you realize it was never your enemy. It was carrying you all along.